Now, answering your questions about the law and legal issues. This is Legal Break with attorney Gary Bruce.
Hello there, I'm Maureen Akers. Welcome, Gary.
Good morning. Good to be here. Thank you.
Glad to have you back, as always. All right, this week's question, let's pull it up. Gary, who is responsible for damage caused by two cars racing? The person who hit me has no insurance.
Yeah, you know, this comes up a lot in Columbus, Georgia.
Okay.
I see it a lot. And if anybody who's left Fort Benning some days thinks they're in a race, you know, and all over. But unfortunately, it does happen. And it's rare that it's somebody with a flag on a empty street, you know, like the old movies. But I do see it a lot. And the responsibility lies with both. Because it's a joint enterprise. It's a joint decision between two people to engage in a dangerous activity. So even though one of them doesn't actually cause the collision, even if there's not a collision, if you run somebody off the road doing it, you're responsible for what they did, potentially. So both, or all three, or everybody, however many, are responsible for what is foreseeable to happen. So it is very foreseeable if you start running as fast as you can up the highway that you're going to cause somebody to get hurt.
Yeah.
And so the law holds both responsible.
Okay, so cause and effect, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You can't race without two.
Right, right. So, all right, how do you prove it? How do you prove that somebody's racing?
So that's the question, right? So anyway, how do you prove it? So you usually won't admit it. So one of the first trials I had years ago was a couple of kids had come home from a date. They had parked on the side of the road, and two cars start drag racing out of their neighborhood, and one of them strikes the car. It was a bad wreck. Fortunately, the injuries weren't terrible, but the collision was with a drunk driver. The guy who struck them had been 6 DUIs.
Oh, wow.
Of course, he had no insurance. And so what was going on? So the other driver was his buddy. We knew who it was because there were people in the neighborhood who knew, but he didn't admit to being racing, right? You know, they were just driving to get a hamburger. So the proof was in the pudding. Ultimately, one of the passengers admitted that they were racing one another. And the circumstances showed it. You know, we can be inside and go and not see it rain, but go outside and see the sidewalks are wet and make the logical assumption that there had been rain, you know, and we can do the same, I think, with the evidence in a racing case. So sometimes it's circumstantial.
Okay, all right, very interesting. Thank you, Gary. See you on the next Legal Break.